Stella and I were the couple everyone envied. She came from a great family, was graceful and charming, basically the perfect girlfriend. But as our wedding date drew near, Stella told me, I don't want to miss out on loving the one I'm truly meant to be with. And just like that, she left me, quickly marrying a handsome, wealthy younger guy. I walked away heartbroken. 3 years later, I ran into Stella at an event. She wasn't the same radiant girl I remembered. When she suggested we talk, I chuckled and said, "Sorry, my wife's waiting for me." I overheard some whispers about Bob's return. Wasn't it Bob who ended it? Stella's now running the Smiths. I wonder if Bob regrets anything. Walking into the ballroom, conversation hit me like a truck. That was the first time in 3 years I heard the real story of our breakup through others. It was unexpected, just like her sudden, "Bob, maybe we should call it quits." She had said people only live once, and she didn't want to miss out on true love. And Bob, you're just too dull for me. Back then, I thought it was a fleeting thought. But the next day, she posted their marriage certificate online with the caption, "People have to live for themselves at least once." Only then did I realize she wasn't consulting me. She was informing me. After sulking for a while, I left and went abroad for further studies. Never in my wildest dreams did I think she would claim I was the one who ended things. She kept the good reputation, and I was labeled as the bitter man who couldn't let go. "Oh, isn't that Bob?" A friend spotted me, greeting me with a question, "Why so late?" I brushed it off, saying something came up. They circled around, commenting on how I seemed even more handsome. Wow, with that physique, not becoming a model is such a waste. Now that Bob is a top architect, his vibe's totally different. An artist, really? No ordinary folk can compare. Sensing some sarcasm, I softly changed the subject. When someone announced, "Stella's here," I turned around. 3 years ago, she was like a shining star in any crowd. Now she appeared weary. A buddy whispered Stella might be in charge, but she's got some family troubles. I was about to ask when Stella looked over. Our eyes met, and she approached hesitantly. "Long time no see." I nodded, replying coolly, "Yeah, it's been a while." Our friends, being considerate, gave us space. This was our first encounter in 3 years, in a setting like this, no less. Stella initiated, "You look like you're doing well." "Yeah, not bad. Heard you won an International Architecture Award. Congrats on fulfilling your dream." Her voice was so familiar, like catching up with an old friend. I just smiled, "Thanks." The conversation hit an awkward pause. Stella broke the silence, admitting she shouldn't have been so impulsive back then. This all in the past, I brushed off lightly. Before she could say more, a shadow rushed in, grabbing Stella by surprise. Surprise. Stella pressed her lips, pulling off this young guy. He took her arm, extended a hand to me. "Hey, I'm Stella's husband, Charles." I'd seen Charles before, 3 years back at Stella's company, a good-looking guy. Stella had casually mentioned him, commenting on their chemistry. Ignoring the signs was my oversight. For manners' sake, I shook his hand slightly. "You two catch up. I'll excuse myself." In the bathroom, I gathered my thoughts and found an unread text. "Hurry, or I'll have to come find you." I replied, 10 more minutes. "Okay?" A quick response came, "Fine, but you owe me tonight." Leaving the restroom, I passed an open lounge. I glanced in. Stella was scolding Charles sternly. "Why make a scene here?" she chided. "Go home. I've got other matters." Charles whined back, "Like what? Are you trying to rekindle with Bob?" "I won't allow it." "Stella, I've been with you since graduation, and this is how you repay me?" Stella looked exhausted, reassuring, "There's nothing with him. Why can't you trust me?" Charles was relentless. "Nearly 2 decades of history with him, and you expect me to believe otherwise?" Indeed, Stella and I shared 20 years of memories, yet it wasn't enough against, "I don't want to miss out." Charles, knowing her true colors, couldn't trust her around me. But that's no longer my concern. Returning to the hall, my friends pulled me to mingle. Mid-chat, Stella rejoined us with Charles, deciding not to leave her beloved behind. They sat across from me, but conversation stayed tense. Suddenly, Charles pointed at my neck, exclaiming, "Oh, did you hurt your neck?" Instinctively, I covered it, deflecting no injury. Yet Charles was determined, pulling my hand away to inspect, exposing marks clearly from some intimate activity. Charles glanced at Stella with meaning. Fixing my collar, I grew annoyed. Everyone else, adults in the room, judged Charles's action harshly. But he seemed oblivious, probing, "Bob, it's been years since you and Stella. Any new girlfriends?" I didn't even answer before hearing Stella hiss, "If you keep messing around, I'll have you sent home immediately." Charles felt wronged, saying, "I just wanted to check on your friend. No harm meant." Stella's face went pale. "Shut up." She seemed like she wanted to apologize to me, but I got up first. "I've got things to do. I'm heading out." As soon as I reached the car, someone hugged me. A woman's clear voice chimed in my ear, "You're 1 minute late." Couldn't help but chuckle. "Daisy, you're so bossy. I'm generous enough to let you meet with your ex." For once, I couldn't find a reason to argue. "Want to come over to my place tonight?" I nodded. We were walking, and suddenly Daisy stopped, cupping my chin and kissing me. After the kiss, I shot her an angry look. "Daisy." She seemed in a good mood. "Yeah, I'm here." She hugged me as we got in the car, looking towards the banquet hall, smiling slyly. I followed her gaze, but there was nothing there. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing, this place is nice." I didn't question it. "Yeah, it is." The next day, my friend Larry called. After chit-chatting about the past few years, he shifted the topic. "I heard Stella and Charles had a big fight last night. Stella even mentioned divorce. Even though you broke up with her, Stella got married the next day, not great character." "Larry," I said, "I didn't break up with her." I told him what Stella had said back then. Larry was fuming. "That witch. She blamed everything on you all these years. I'm gonna clear your name right now." "It's fine, it's all in the past." Maybe talking to Larry brought back memories of the night Stella broke it off. I had made all her favorite dishes. She came home at 11. Without even glancing at the table, she headed to the study. I called her. "Eat something before you get to work?" "I already ate," she said. But it was our anniversary. She had promised in the morning she'd come home to dinner with me. I wanted to say more, but Stella got a phone call and was about to leave. I stopped her. "Today is our anniversary." She stared at me for so long I thought she felt guilty. Then she suddenly said, "Bob, maybe we should call it quits." I stared at her for a long time before asking why. She said, "You're too boring. Bob, we've known each other forever. You're only into books and design, nothing else. You're too dull, I don't want to spend my life with a stiff." That night she left and never came back. I sat alone all night. Until she posted her marriage certificate on social media, I thought she was just having a bad day. But I was wrong. After the breakup, I was in a slump for a long time. My parents were worried, so they sent me abroad to study and clear my mind. Even abroad, it took time to get over it. I often drank myself silly at bars. That's when Daisy came along. She took me home drunk and took care of me all night. The next day, I thought we had slept together and felt worse. She calmly said, Daisy wouldn't take advantage of someone like that." Finding out I was attending school near her company, Daisy often picked me up for meals. Naturally, we became friends. Breaking the friendship boundary happened 6 months ago when I won an international design award. I took her out to dinner, and on the way back, she asked seriously, "I've been after you for a while. Aren't you going to make it official?" Looking at this woman who's both capable and graceful, I impulsively agreed. When Stella asked to meet, I was trying on a suit for a friend. I gave her the suit shop's address. By the time she arrived, I had changed into casual clothes. She suggested going across the street to sit. "Let's stay here." If Daisy, the jealous type, found out I was alone with her, it'd be trouble. As I went to sit, a sharp pain shot up my thigh from where Daisy had bitten me, leaving a lasting mark. I placed a soft pillow under me, asking, "What's so important we need to meet face to face?" Stella took out a jewelry box. "This belongs to you," returning it. Inside was her proposal watch from years ago. I looked at her coldly. What's this about? It's your watch? I can't keep it. After a breakup, nobody holds onto proposal tokens. Stella seemed to be trying to upset me. I was livid and grabbed the water to drink. I don't know if I drank too fast, but I started coughing violently. Stella tried to help, but another hand beat her to it, helping me. No need, Stella, my boyfriend just choked. He wasn't eating, how could he choke? Stella frowned. Had a big cherry this morning. Choked for 20 minutes before spitting it out. Stella was puzzled. Soon her face tightened, her fist clenched, looked ready to snap. The two women stared each other down, neither backing off. Finally recovering, I told Stella. Stella, keep it or toss it, it's up to you. Leaving the shop, I held Daisy's hand. Don't be mad. I didn't think she'd bring that thing. Daisy's jaw was tight. You met her privately. But this is your turf. Daisy, she's history, no future, no chance. Though Daisy still looked stern, the corners of her mouth betrayed a hint of a smile. I held her close. Tomorrow's design show, I saved you a good spot. That's more like it. At the design show, Stella showed up. Through the crowd, I saw her being led to the seat I reserved for Daisy. Not sure if it was just me, but it looked like Stella gave Daisy a challenging smile. Daisy didn't pay her any mind, just quietly watched the backstage area. I called over my assistant and gave a couple quick instructions. Not long after she left, someone came over to Daisy, whispered something, and took her to the best private room on the second floor. Looking at Stella, her smug expression was quickly replaced by a dark one. But honestly, I didn't care. After the exhibition ended, I headed to the backstage to wait for Daisy. Surprisingly, it was Stella who showed up instead. Holding a bouquet, she said, "Bob, you look really handsome today." I didn't take the flowers. Thanks, but I'd rather not accept them to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Is that because you're afraid she'll misunderstand? Yeah. You've changed, she said. You weren't like this before. No, I was always like this. Since being with her, I've kept my distance from other women, never letting her misunderstand. She seemed to recall something. Her lips tightened. So now you're going to keep your distance from me? Yes. A flash of pain crossed her eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I came to tell you there's a college reunion coming up, and everyone wants you to be there. I nodded. I'll be there. I had a good relationship with my college friends, and I wasn't going to miss the reunion just because of Stella. After Stella left, Daisy immediately came in. Her face was expressionless, making it hard to tell if she was upset or not. I explained what happened with Stella. Daisy remained stoic. You're going to attend? Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen them. Seeing her pretend to be aloof made me smile. So I took her hand and said, I want you to come with me. I came back to prepare for our engagement and wedding plans, and the reunion was a perfect time to introduce Daisy to my friends. Those rumors about me would be quickly dismissed. On the day of the reunion, Daisy cleared her schedule to accompany me. As we were leaving, I got a call from Larry. Bob, we just got word that no partners are allowed today. I checked around and they said Stella organized the event, and she was the one who set the no partners rule. How outrageous. Everyone brought someone every year. Was this her way of wanting her husband to stay away too? Larry and the others thought maybe Stella just didn't want her husband around. But we all knew she was targeting Daisy. I looked at Daisy. She gave a sly smile, her eyes cold and dark. I can't wait to see what she's up to. Daisy made a few calls, then we headed out together. At the entrance to the room, Daisy told me to go on ahead. She'd be right behind. Just as I was about to knock, I heard someone talking about me inside. I heard Bob found some rich old cougar abroad. He might be living it up now, but that's what happens when you find yourself a sugar mommy. With Bob's model-like physique, what woman wouldn't be charmed? If I had that build, I'd pick a wealthy partner too. Stella, didn't you meet his woman? Stella's voice was void of emotion. Nope. So the rumors are true. Good thing you broke up early, wouldn't want to be swindled for too much money. Exactly. Between Charles and Bob, it's obvious Charles is the better catch. Right, Stella? Stella seemed to chuckle. Life can't be too boring. I'd never seen this side of Stella before. She usually knew right from wrong and had a sense of propriety. But now, personal agendas led her to ignore the truth, an eerie departure from who she used to be. When I stepped inside, everyone froze, staring at me. I went straight to Stella and slapped her. The bustling room fell into an uncanny silence. Stella looked at me with a calm face, silent and still. Her friend was the first to speak. "Bob, what's this about?" I looked Stella in the eye. "You broke up with me and then trashed my reputation. I didn't care because I didn't know better. But you know the truth now and still spread lies with them? Stella, I really have no respect for you." Her friends were agitated. "Bob, what are you even talking about?" Stella only spoke a few truths. Was it necessary to get so mad? I held back my anger. "Which truths do you mean? How about the one where she broke up with me at night and got married to someone else the next day? Or how she brought our old stuff to rub it in my and my fiancé's face?" Everyone just glanced at each other. Maybe it's because Stella maintained a spotless image for years. Folks still took her side. "Bob, we know you haven't gotten over Stella. But you cheated first, didn't you?" "Yeah, Bob, regret it all you want, but don't ruin other people's families." No matter what they said, I wasn't fazed. I just stared calmly at Stella. The tension in the room grew thick. Someone tugged at my sleeve, hinting I should just let it go. Finally, Stella spoke for the first time since I entered. "Bob, let's not dwell on the past." I let the words roll around a bit and suddenly laughed out loud. Stella's eyes darkened. "We've all gathered here. No point ruining the mood. Many years ago, I introduced Stella to my parents. Her faultless behavior made me proud before them. But once she left, my parents gave me a heartfelt talk. 'Bob, she's too cunning. If things don't work out, she'll know exactly how to hurt you.' Back then, I was head over heels for Stella, not listening to a word of caution. I even reassured them that regardless of who she'd hurt, it wouldn't be me. Recalling that conversation now, it's just painfully ironic. Looking at this two-faced woman in front of me, just as I was about to speak, someone rushed towards me. "Bob, you jerk. I knew you couldn't give up on Stella. It's been years, and you're still eyeing someone else's wife? Can't the rich old lady you're with satisfy you?" Charles lunged at me. He was so fast there was no way to dodge. Then, just as he was about to hit me, a hand pulled me aside. Charles stopped in front of me, casting a sharp glance at the woman behind me. "Oh, and who is this? Another one of Bob's women? This man being single sure is different, finding women wherever he goes." The woman he mentioned was nervously checking if I was hurt. I held her hand and turned to Charles. "My tone a bit harsh. If you want to act out, pick a better time. This is our school reunion, so please don't make a scene." Charles's expression turned as he looked at Stella, who didn't seem to be interested in kicking him out. He then laughed. "But my wife planned this whole thing. What can I do? If you don't like it, you're free to leave." Larry's voice chimed in at just the right moment. "Yeah, Stella organized it, and she specifically said no partners allowed. How come nobody else brought theirs, but you did? What? Did she bring us all here just to show off with you?" Larry's comment got a few guys who didn't like Charles to nod in agreement. Seeing how things were turning against Stella, Charles hurried to explain, "I didn't mean that." But he stammered. Finally, he looked to Stella for help, but her face was already dark with anger. With a low voice, she scolded Charles, "Aren't you embarrassed enough already?" Just moments ago, Charles had been proud that Stella didn't kick him out. Now, he was like he was in freefall. He bit his lip, almost crying, "Honey." Stella looked at him coldly, no sign of her usual understanding and kindness. Charles choked up, pleaded, "I'll sit right next to you and won't do anything. Don't kick me out, okay?" Larry was the first to oppose. Since nobody else brought a date, nobody should. Right, guys? And hey, this rule was for you and your honey, made just for you. Charles glared at Larry, but he couldn't argue back. Then a crisp voice broke in. "How about this? I'll host a night at the top floor of Majestic for everyone and their partners to relax. At that, everyone started paying attention to Daisy. Who is she, Bob? I took Daisy's hand and introduced her. This is my fiancée, Daisy. Everyone was shocked. I heard someone say, wasn't Bob supposed to be with some rich old lady? Is she just a plant to clear his name? Larry couldn't stand it anymore. Come on, people, think about who started those rumors about Bob. After a brief silence, everyone looked at Charles. Charles looked around helplessly, finally landing his eyes on Stella, who didn't even glance at him. Larry chuckled. All that effort spreading rumors about Bob, and now you've got nothing to say? Bob's right here. Keep talking. We can settle this face to face. Seriously, why hate on Bob out of all people? Charles left in tears. After he left, someone asked me, Bob, is she really your fiancée? I smiled and nodded. The person said with envy, we were all misled by Charles. A good man like you definitely deserves someone better. She glanced at Stella, suggesting some people shouldn't tarnish others just because they messed up. Stella sat on the sofa, her face unreadable. But her friend couldn't keep quiet. Bob, where'd you find someone so naive anyway? Saying we could go to the top floor of Majestic? That's for really high up folks. I heard there's a private room for Daisy, not open to the public. Could you have your fiancé arrange for us to have a look? The women laughed aloud. Next time, Bob, find someone a bit more knowledgeable so you don't end up in such a mess. Stella looked at Daisy but quickly looked away. Larry couldn't keep quiet, walked over to me. Bob, let's go. They can choose to join or not, but I'm not missing a chance to see the top floor of Majestic. Larry moved and a few guys joined him. Stella, who hadn't spoken, suddenly said, Bob, don't blow this out of proportion. If you really want to go, I'll just make a call. What happened since I returned made me see Stella differently. I turned down her offer and left with a few guys. Especially maybe just curious to see a show. Stella's friends followed us, including Stella. At Majestic, when Daisy stepped away for a call, Stella approached me. You've changed, you never cared about these things before. I knew what she meant. I used to be considerate of her busy social life, never asking for anything, let alone having her pull strings for my small vanity. She glanced at Daisy making a call not far away. Bob, she isn't right for you. I couldn't hold back and stopped her. I know what's right for me. No need to worry yourself. Stella frowned slightly. What good does it do to argue with me now? Maybe you should think about how to cover up her lie, so you don't end up embarrassed in the group chat with your classmates. Stella's friends always said that after leaving her, I'd never find anyone better. So she's convinced Daisy doesn't measure up to her. After all, in her eyes, why would a successful young woman like Daisy be interested in someone as dull and old-fashioned as me? I just smiled silently in response to her doubts. No one knows Daisy's capabilities better than I do. Plus, the whole luxurious place is owned by the Millers, and it's just a matter of her saying the word if she needs anything. Daisy was on a call for a while, and she looked a bit off when she returned. Stella glanced at her and said nonchalantly, the top floor needs a reservation. Let me make a call and ask. Then she stepped aside to make her call. I asked Daisy if she was facing any trouble. She explained it was work-related. Just then, Stella returned. She shot Daisy a glance of fleeting disdain and suggested switching locations, claiming the top floor was already booked. But Daisy was unfazed, saying everything was ready for us to head up. Stella tried to stop her, saying, Don't bring Bob along. He's too thin-skinned for this embarrassment. As she reached out to grab me, Daisy pulled me to her side instead. The tension between the two women instantly escalated, catching the attention of our classmates. Stella's friends, understanding the situation, started mocking Daisy. I knew it. How could someone without power or influence get to the top floor? Now everyone's embarrassed. One friend suggested, Stella, don't you know Susan here? Call her up and see if she can get you permission to let her take a look upstairs. Suddenly, Susan appeared, seemingly due to Stella's influence. However, in a twist, Susan bypassed Stella and approached Daisy respectfully, saying, "I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. Let me take you up now." Stella's friends thought Susan had mistaken Daisy for Stella, emphasizing Stella had made the call. Susan finally looked over and mildly acknowledged Stella's presence, but reiterated that the top floor was reserved for Miss Daisy. Surprised and silent, Stella and her friends realized Daisy's true identity. Daisy had been overseas for years, so her connection to the Millers was not common knowledge locally. This turn of events soured the night for Stella and her friends, who stayed until the party's end, while others like Larry gleefully ridiculed them. After the reunion, Daisy began taking over her family's business. Despite her hectic schedule, she made time to send me messages and plan little surprises. That was until I unexpectedly visited her work one day and discovered she and Stella had a fight. Seeing me, Daisy tried to avoid the topic, but cornered, she came clean. Stella had tried to meet with Daisy, and things got heated quickly, resulting in a physical altercation. I quietly applied ointment to the scratches on her arm. "Daisy," I called her. "Stella's in my past. There's no need to waste time on her." She smiled and joked, "Well, what if I told you she's still hung up on you?" I retorted, "What people think is their own business. Can you control that?" Daisy chuckled, "Gotcha. Speaking of which, I aimed those punches at visible spots." I pointed at a bruise on her face. "Why did you let her hit where it leaves a mark?" Daisy didn't deny it, saying, "So you'd feel sorry for me." The next day, she asked me to join her on a business trip. Although initially hesitant, I couldn't refuse her persistent persuasion. Unexpectedly, I bumped into Stella during the trip, and even more surprisingly, Charles was there too. At the hotel's hot springs, I overheard Charles talking to a friend. He bragged about how he easily manipulated Stella, taking credit for sabotaging our relationship to keep her at his side. Laughing about stealing money I saved for her, he called me boring and dim-witted. After hearing this, I finally understood Stella's real view of me. Turns out she wasn't telling me everything. But if she looks down on me so much, why did she keep coming back after I returned to the country? After a business trip, I grabbed a box from the corner of my study. It held all the memories with Stella. It's been gathering dust ever since I moved abroad. If not for Charles's words, I might never have opened it. I took out an old phone and a few memory cards, tossing the rest. The memory cards were intact, and the phone powered up after charging. I downloaded everything off the memory cards and then dialed a number. The next morning, noise woke me up. The Smiths were at it, raising a ruckus in the living room, demanding answers. As I got ready and headed downstairs, Stella's parents grabbed my hands. "Bob, let it go. Don't hold it against her. Okay? Yeah, Bob, you two were once together. Why cut off her options like this? Take down those videos online." I gently pulled my hands away and went to stand by my parents. "Uncle, Aunt, Stella sent you over, didn't she? Tell her I'm just trying to clear my name in my own way. No more, no less." Stella's parents seemed taken aback by my bluntness and just stood there, stunned. I took my time and continued, "Stella cheated first, then slandered me, and now has beaten up my fiancé with some lame excuse." Before I even finished, my mom suddenly stood up. "What? My daughter-in-law got hurt? Where? How serious is it?" My dad slammed the table in anger. "This is outrageous. You guys hit someone, and you're here placing blame first? Unbelievable. Butler, get them out of here." By the time Stella's parents realized the situation had turned against them, it was too late. As they were being shown out, all they could do was beg me to delete the videos and chat logs online. I hadn't known about those chats and videos until Charles mentioned them. He called me a fool for trusting Stella too much and for never checking the surveillance videos. Had I watched just any day's footage, I'd have seen the sneaky escapades of him and Stella. He also mentioned that old phone was specifically for Stella and his flirtations, though Stella told me it was her work phone. Stella probably never imagined her supposedly perfect lover would leave her so exposed. My mom, who had always adored Daisy as her future daughter-in-law, fumed after kicking them out. "Your daughter likes to stick her nose in things? Why not have her deal with her own mess? Why bother us? After Stella quickly married Charles, I hit a rough patch for a while. My parents had even gone to ask Stella to visit me, but what did they say? Our daughter is so extraordinary. She never lacks male company. If she had to clean up after every breakup, when would she get any work done? Your son's had 2 years with our daughter. Didn't he benefit from her too? Your son's quite handsome. Getting another good match shouldn't be an issue. Now, tables turned, it felt like my parents finally got to stand tall. Afterward, they didn't scold me but praised my actions. You did the right thing, Bob. We're behind you. If we knew you kept those things, Stella would have faced karma much sooner. By the way, Bob, is Stella still bothering you? I shook my head. But 2 days later, Stella showed up once more. The scoop I gave my journalist friend hit every major headline. The buzz didn't die down for days. Larry mentioned that Stella's been swamped dealing with that scandal, even losing out on major projects. Meanwhile, from Daisy I heard she's scored several big deals recently. Talking about Stella's situation, Larry couldn't help but sigh. Who would have thought that about Stella? Good thing you cut ties when you did, or you'd be caught up in it now. With Charles causing a scene recently and now Stella's mess, he's the last to dare speak up. I quietly listened as images of those leaked videos flashed in my mind. Before breaking up with me, Stella had snuck Charles into our home. On the couch I chose for us, they made out passionately. Behind my back, they played house in my place, and during her late nights, supposedly working, she was on all-night calls with him. Yet, I never once doubted her. That day, I was stuck at the studio working late. When I came downstairs, there was Stella leaning against a car by the road, cigarette butts scattered all around her feet. As soon as she saw me, she strode over. Up close, I realized Larry's description of her had been an understatement. Stella looked defeated. The clothes she usually kept pristine were wrinkled. Her hair was a mess, and there were heavy bags under her eyes. Obviously, she hadn't rested in a long time. "Wanna talk?" she asked. "No," I replied. "My fiancé is waiting for me." Stella pinched the bridge of her nose. "Did you release those videos and chat logs? Did it have to be so ruthless?" I stepped back, creating space between us. It's not about being ruthless. I just want justice for myself. Her face darkened. "Do you realize what you've released can ruin me?" I met her eyes calmly. "Yes, I know. Bob, I thought you were different from other men. Turns out you're even more vicious. What happened back then is my fault, but did you really do nothing wrong?" After all these years, we brought up the breakup for the first time, and here we were, confronting each other like this. She still thought she did nothing wrong. I was the one at fault because I was uninteresting, and I shouldn't have exposed her cheating, cutting short her career. But seriously, where did I go wrong? "Bob," she continued, "I'm a woman. You seem to need nothing from me, made me feel unnecessary, like I didn't exist. Do you get that?" "I don't," I replied. "If you didn't love me anymore, you could have told me. You didn't need to hurt me." "I didn't mean to," she started. I cut her off. "You just wanted some thrill, didn't you? You got married the day after we broke up and told everyone I was the one who cheated, right? Stella, we're adults. Let's stop pretending. After this, we're done." I heard footsteps approaching. It was Charles. He wanted to come closer but hesitated because of Stella. She noticed him and frowned even more. "Why are you still following me?" Charles paused, almost crying. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." He looked at me suddenly. "It was you, wasn't it? You overheard me talking, didn't you? Bob, how could you be so cruel? Do you want to ruin Stella?" With his face twisted and hysterical in front of me, I turned away without a second thought. Daisy came around from behind the car and grabbed my hand as we got in. She playfully said, "If I hadn't come home today, would you have stayed up all night talking to her?" I nodded. "Who knows?" Daisy's face darkened. That night, she didn't let me go home, challenging me into all sorts of exhausting tasks. I could barely keep up. As the wedding date approached, Daisy and I got busier. Our families were thrilled about the marriage. On the wedding day, Larry found me in the dressing room. Just saw Stella. Man, I barely recognized her. I'd heard bits and pieces about Stella from Daisy, but she didn't want me digging too much. All I knew was Stella's life was a mess now, with her company facing bankruptcy. You've heard of Charles, right? Stella's trying to divorce him, but the Liu family is blackmailing her to stay with him. Everyone knows the score. Even if she stays married, Stella won't ever reach her old heights again. Charles is unstable. Who knows what drama he'll stir up next? But none of this concerns me anymore. With my mom by my arm, I walked towards the woman in the center of the stage. Her gaze was like an unbreakable vow, fixed on me. It was as if she was telling me that not all people are the same.